Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive. I'm Lex.
And I'm Vera. Great to have you with us.
Today, Vera and I are digging into some really important updates straight from Google.
Yeah, we're talking about their newly revised Search Quality Rater Guidelines from January 2025.
And if you're running a business with an online presence, especially, our listeners, business owners, C-level executives, this is definitely something you'll want to wrap your head around.
Absolutely. Think of these guidelines as insights into how Google actually assesses the quality of web pages.
Right. So understanding what's changed gives you a real advantage.
Exactly. You get to see what Google prioritizes and, maybe more importantly, what it's likely to view less favorably in search results.
Okay, so let's unpack this. One of the first things that, well, it caught my eye anyway, is that Google has now formally defined generative AI within these guidelines. They describe it as, machine learning that creates new content, text, images, music, code, based on what it's learned.
And why they're being so explicit now is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it really highlights the sheer amount of AI-generated content out there now, and Google's need to, well, assess its quality.
That's a really smart observation. By putting this definition front and center, Google is setting a clear framework, for how they'll evaluate content produced by these tools.
So they're not saying AI is inherently bad.
No, not inherently bad, but it's definitely indicating that it will be judged critically.
Yeah.
Based on its value and, crucially, how it's being used.
Okay. And speaking of being judged, the whole section on spam,
Yeah.
that's been significantly reorganized, right?
Oh, yeah. Big changes there. The old auto-generated MC section.
Wow.
And now there's a much stronger focus on what they're calling scaled low-effort content.
Scaled, low effort. Okay.
And you can bet that misuse of AI is right smack bang in the middle of this concern.
Makes sense. This shift in focus is key then.
Totally. It's not just about content that's automatically created anymore. It's about the broader problem. Low-quality content produced in large quantities, regardless of the method.
And AI just makes that easier, I guess.
Exactly. AI is a major factor enabling this kind of scaled-up, low-effort approach.
They've even introduced some new categories here that are pretty telling, like expired domain abuse.
That's the practice of buying up old domain names just to host low-value content, trying to get a quick ranking boost,
Sneaky. And then site reputation abuse.
Yeah, that's where websites host third-party content, often unrelated stuff, simply to let that content kind of borrow the host's existing good reputation.
Okay, these tactics aren't entirely new, though, are they?
Not brand new, no, but Google is now explicitly calling them out in the guidelines, likely because they're becoming more widespread, maybe more sophisticated.
And like you said, AI and automation can really amplify these kinds of abuses.
Precisely.
And then we have scaled content abuse. This one sounds pretty straightforward.
It is, creating massive amounts of low-effort, unoriginal content. And they specifically mention generative AI as a tool that can, well, facilitate this.
Okay. And finally, there's main content with little to no effort, originality, added value.
This one really sounds like they're directly targeting all that, low quality, just paraphrase content that AI could churn out so easily.
It's interesting how these categories connect, isn't it?
Yes, scaled content abuse can very easily lead to that main content with little to no effort.
And AI tools just lower the barrier.
Definitely. Google is essentially drawing a much clearer line against content that doesn't provide, real value to users.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. The guidelines now explicitly state something about the lowest quality rating.
Yes, this is huge. If almost all of the main content is auto or AI generated and offers very little in terms of effort, originality, or added value, it should receive the lowest quality rating, flat out.
Wow. And this isn't some minor point you mentioned. John Mueller highlighted this specifically.
He did, which really signals how seriously Google is taking this. The lowest rating is, it's the absolute bottom tier.
Basically saying it's unhelpful.
Fundamentally unhelpful, yes, and potentially detrimental to the search results. Mueller emphasizing this really underscores its significance for anyone creating content online.
And get this, it even says this applies even if you give credit to another source.
Exactly. So just attributing a piece of AI-generated fluff isn't going to magically make it high quality in Google's eyes.
So it's not just about plagiarism.
Not at all. It's much more about the inherent quality and originality of the content itself. If it lacks genuine effort and doesn't offer anything new or valuable, Attribution doesn't save it.
Now, how exactly are they going to determine this? If content is AI generated or just, plain bad, they don't lay out a specific AI detection method for us, do they?
No, not publicly. But they do provide some clues, especially related to paraphrase content, which, as we know, automated tools can generate very quickly.
So while Google likely has its internal methods,
The guidelines for the human quality raters focus on observable characteristics, things that suggest a piece was created without much original thought or effort.
okay, so what should we, or rather, what should the raters be looking for?
Well, content that's primarily common knowledge, right? Information you can find pretty much anywhere.
Right, nothing new.
Also, a high degree of overlap with established sources like Wikipedia. Basically, if the content just rehashes existing information without adding any new insights or analysis.
Like a summary with no extra value.
Precisely. And content that just summarizes without offering any additional analysis or, perspective. Interestingly, they used to even mention phrases like as an AI language model as potential red flags.
Oh, yeah, I remember seeing
You
this.
see that less often now, but it was an indicator.
So these are all signs of content lacking significant human input, missing that unique angle.
Exactly. Missing that perspective or in-depth analysis or added value that distinguishes truly high-quality content.
It's also important you mentioned to understand the difference between low and lowest quality ratings.
Yes, crucial distinction. Low generally applies to content that reuses existing material, but maybe with some level of curation or a minimal original contribution.
Okay. And lowest?
Lowest, on the other hand, is reserved for content that is almost entirely copied or paraphrased. It demonstrates a complete lack of effort or any added value whatsoever.
Can you give an example? Like, what's low versus lowest?
Sure. Think of a low rating maybe for a social media post that's mostly a repost of someone else's content, but they added like a very brief comment.
Okay.
A lowest rating would be more like a blog post that's just a slightly reworded version of, say, a Wikipedia article.
Yeah.
No new information, no unique perspective, just filler.
And speaking of filler, Google is also cracking down on what they call filler content itself.
Mm-hmm. This is that low effort, often low relevance material that doesn't really serve the purpose of the page.
And it just detracts from the user experience.
Exactly. It's like adding unnecessary fluff to a presentation just to make it seem longer. It doesn't help the visitor and can actually make it harder for them to find what they're actually looking for.
And even if it's not, like, actively harmful.
Right. Even if it's not harmful, this filler content can still lead to a low-quality rating if it obscures the helpful stuff or if it just seems to be there to artificially inflate the page length.
User experience is still king then.
Absolutely. User experience is a critical factor. Content that negatively impacts usability, even if it's factually correct, can definitely hurt your rankings.
Another significant change involves stricter rules around claims of expertise or experience, EEAT, right?
Yes, exactly. You can't just claim to be an expert anymore without backing it up. Google is scrutinizing these claims more closely.
So if your stated credentials seem exaggerated or your expertise feels manufactured,
You could be looking at a low-quality rating. This ties directly into EEAT experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness.
which, for anyone less familiar, are key signals Google uses for credibility.
Precisely. Google wants to see that your EEAT is based on the actual content you provide and your overall reputation, not just on self-proclaimed titles.
Right, it's not enough to simply say you're an expert. You have to demonstrate it.
Through the quality, depth, and accuracy of your content. And the quality raters are now specifically instructed to look beyond those self-proclaimed titles. They need to evaluate the substance.
So they're doing their homework on the site's reputation, too.
Yes, they're asked to conduct their own research into reputation and carefully assess the content itself to see if genuine expertise is being demonstrated. This means for businesses, like many of our listeners, building real authority in your specific industry is, well, more important than ever.
Okay. Are there any other notable updates worth mentioning quickly?
A few, yeah. They're now assigning a lowest rating to pages that primarily benefit the website owner with very little regard for the visitors.
So pages that are just about making money, not helping users.
Pretty much. They've also expanded the guidelines around deceptive page purpose, misleading information, and manipulative design.
Okay. And here's an interesting one. A new low recipe 3 rating.
For recipes, really?
Yeah, specifically for recipe pages that are just overloaded with ads and unrelated content, making it super difficult for users to actually find the recipe itself.
Huh. I think we've all encountered those pages.
Right. These additional changes really reinforce Google's commitment to prioritizing user experience and combating practices designed to manipulate results or just frustrate people.
Okay, and one last detail, the ad blockers.
Ah, yes. Quality raters are now required to disable their ad blockers when evaluating pages.
Interesting. Why?
It suggests Google wants them to experience the pages like a typical user would, including any ads, because ads can definitely impact the overall user experience.
That's a telling detail. Makes you think about your own ad placements.
Absolutely. It underscores the importance of considering the ad experience and ensuring it doesn't significantly detract from the user's ability to access your content.
So let's bring this all together. What does all of this mean for our listeners, the business owners, the C-level executives?
Well, it seems pretty clear, doesn't it? Google is increasingly prioritizing original, high-quality content that truly benefits users.
So if your current strategy relies heavily on purely automated content without adding substantial value,
It might be time for a serious reevaluation. Seriously.
these updates signal that creating content primarily for search engines rather than focusing on genuine value for your audience.
That's becoming an increasingly risky strategy. The emphasis needs to be on delivering real expertise, demonstrating strong EAT, and creating content that truly resonates with your customers.
It really reinforces the idea that long-term success in digital marketing, especially in areas like local SEO, PPC, and SMM, which, we specialize in here at Shield Media,
Right.
it isn't about finding quick fixes or trying to game the system with low-effort tactics.
No, it's about building genuine authority and trust, consistently providing valuable content and a positive user experience.
Yeah.
That's the game now.
Exactly. So whether your focus is attracting local customers here in the West, optimizing paid campaigns, or building engagement on social,
The fundamental principle remains the same. Prioritize quality, originality, and providing a great experience. Remember, these guidelines directly inform how Google's algorithms actually work.
Okay, so as you can see, these updates from Google are, well, pretty significant.
They really are. The message is crystal clear. Value originality, prioritize the user experience, and ensure your content genuinely offers something worthwhile.
We really hope this deep dive has given you, our listeners, a clearer understanding of these important changes and how they might impact your online strategies.
Yeah, it's honestly a great time to maybe take a fresh look at your current content.
Yeah.
Identify areas where you can really double down on enhancing quality and originality.
Absolutely. And if you found this information helpful, please do click that follow button and maybe share this deep dive with others, colleagues, or contacts who could benefit from this knowledge.
And remember, at Shield Media, we're always here, passionate about helping Western clients navigate the complexities of digital marketing, local SEO, PPC, social media marketing. That's our focus.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the deep dive. I'm Lex.
And I'm Vera. We look forward to bringing you more valuable insights in our next deep dive. Until then.
One final thought for you to mull over. With AI making it easier than ever to produce vast amounts of content, think about what truly unique insights, experiences, or perspectives you and your business bring to the table. Where can you inject your own specific expertise and originality to stand out and provide value that, frankly, AI simply can't replicate right now? That's where your real competitive advantage lies.